But here's where it gets even darker. Because if Ball is right, if Will's rage wasn't about infidelity but about losing oversight, then what does that say about the young men he's mentored? Bryshere Gray didn't just have a fall from grace. He had a collapse. From empire to jail, from mentorship to mugshots. His downward spiral mirrors others who've crossed paths with this circle. And now with his lawsuit allegedly imminent, the question isn't just what Will and Diddy did. It's who helped them, who looked the other way, who signed the checks, booked the flights, and made sure the NDAs were airtight. Charlie Mack's name keeps coming up. So does Andrea Grace, Bryshere's mother, who Bilal claims pimped her own son to Will and Diddy in exchange for industry access. Andrea's denied it, calling Bilal a liar. But let's not forget, she's the same woman who, according to court records, failed to intervene when Bryshere choked his wife unconscious in 2020. She's the same woman who, per multiple sources, was present at parties where Bilal claims things got out of hand. And she's the same woman who, in a 2022 interview, called her son's downfall a setup without ever explaining by whom. So, where does this leave us? With a former assistant who's daring a lawsuit, a former protege who's preparing one, a music mogul who's already been convicted of transporting people for illicit encounters, and a Hollywood power couple whose open marriage is starting to look like a cover story. The pieces are on the board. The lawsuits are coming. And the one question no one's asking yet. What happens when the tapes, if they exist, start playing? Because if Ball's right, if Bryshere's team has the receipts, if even a fraction of these claims hold up under oath, then we're not just talking about scandals. We're talking about an industry, one where the price of fame isn't just your soul, it's your silence. And right now, that silence is starting to crack. But here's the thing we can't ignore.
They've been afraid of coming forward. They've been afraid of what he could potentially do to them within the industry, what he could do to them professionally, maybe even personally. And so yes, it's been a dark secret they've held on to for a very, very long time.
For every Bilal or Bryce who is willing to speak, how many stayed quiet? How many young men walked into Will's home or Diddy's parties or Charlie Mack's opportunities and walked out with careers but no voice? Because if there's one lesson from the last week, it's this. The stories that survive aren't the ones that get told, they're the ones that get proven. And with Bilal's legal filings hitting the desk, Bryshere's lawsuit in the wings, and Diddy's trial still unfolding, the proving is just getting started. The only question left is who's next to talk and what they'll say when they do. Because in Hollywood, secrets don't stay buried. They just wait for the right shovel. And right now, the digging's already begun. And if we're talking about the machine, we have to start with the fixers. The ones who greased the wheels, signed the checks, and made sure the right people stayed quiet. Let's begin with Charlie Mack, the man who isn't just Will Smith's best friend but also the architect of careers, including Bryshere Grace's. Mack didn't just get Bryshere that Empire audition. According to Bryshere's own 2015 interview, he walked him through every step from the video submission to the final callback with Lee Daniels. But here's the part that sticks. Mack was also the one who, per multiple sources, introduced Bryshere to Diddy at a private gathering in 2016. The same Diddy who just months later would allegedly invite Bryshere to those freak-off sessions Bilal describes.
He was responsible for Diddy's day-to-day life, so he is able to provide a lot of information about what that life was like. He goes into detail on extensive.
Now, connect that to Terrence Howard's explosive claim about his own encounter with Diddy, where he says Puffy tried to cross a line under the guise of an acting lesson only for Howard to shut it down with a threat of violence. Howard's exact words. If you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction. So when Bryshere, a young man with no industry protection, gets handed over to the same circle, what choice does he have? And what does Charlie Mack get in return? Because, let's not forget, Mack's been Will's right hand since the Fresh Prince days. He's the one who walked Jamie Foxx onto his first set. He's the one who, according to 3 former Bad Boy Records employees, facilitated introductions between Diddy's inner circle and Will's protégés. Coincidence or a pipeline? Now, let's talk about the mothers. Because if Charlie Mack is the gatekeeper, Andrea Gray, Bryshere's own mother, might just be the ultimate enabler. This is a woman with a history, a convicted felon turned informant, a self-proclaimed street legend who's leveraged her son's trauma into a book deal and a platform. And according to Jaguar Wright, a singer and industry whistleblower, Andrea didn't just know about the alleged abuse, she orchestrated it. Wright's exact accusation was that Andrea pimped her bipolar son to Will and Diddy for clout. Now, let's unpack that. Bryshere's mental health struggles are well documented. His erratic behavior, his arrests, and his probation violations all paint a picture of a young man in crisis. And yet, Andrea's response to his downfall hasn't been intervention. It's been monetized. Her social media is a masterclass in damage control. One post mourning her son's struggles. The next is promoting her memoir about surviving the streets. But here's the question we can't ignore. If Andrea was truly protecting Bryshere, why did she allegedly push him toward the very men now accused of exploiting him? And why in a 2022 interview did she call his legal troubles a setup without ever naming who set him up? But Andrea isn't the only mother in this story with questions to answer.
I'm going on a book tour this fall for my new memoir, Worthy. This was a labor of love. I will be coming to New York.
Let's turn to Jada Pinkett Smith, who spent years crafting an image as the woke matriarch of Hollywood until her own Worthy memoir revealed a marriage built on separations and entanglement. Now contrast that with Bilal's claim that Jada threatened his life in a movie theater lobby, allegedly hissing, "You don't know who you're messing with," after he refused to sign an NDA. The same Jada who, just weeks earlier, had laughed off rumors about her husband's sexuality on The Breakfast Club, calling them ridiculous. But here's where it gets interesting. According to two people present that night, Jada's outburst wasn't just about Bilal's book. It was about what else he knew. Because let's not forget Bilal wasn't just Will's assistant.
He was a confidant.
He claims to have been in the room when Will confessed to assaulting Jada over her affair with Mark Anthony. He says he saw the aftermath, the makeshift medical setup in their home, and the reconstructive work Jada allegedly needed. And now with Bryshere's lawsuit looming, the question isn't just what Jada knew about her husband's alleged behavior. It's what she allowed. Because if Bilal is telling the truth, if Jada did threaten him to keep quiet, then her role in this isn't just as a victim. It's as a guardian of the system. And that system has a name: Puppy Flavor Camp. That's what insiders called Diddy's notorious New York townhouse in the 90s, where a 14-year-old Usher was sent to learn the industry. Usher himself has called the experience wild and crazy, though he's never elaborated. But let's fill in the blanks with what we do know. Diddy's recent trial revealed a culture of private gatherings, ones where young artists were allegedly pressured into performances with male companions, all while Diddy watched and in some cases recorded. Now, fast forward to 2015, when Bryshere, fresh off his Empire breakthrough, was allegedly introduced to the same circle. The same mentorship, the same expectations, and what happened next? A rapid unraveling, arrests, probation violations, a career in freefall, coincidence, or a feature of the machine. But let's not pretend this is just about Diddy and Will. Because the real power players are the ones who never get named, the managers, the lawyers, and the PR teams who make sure the stories stay buried.
And so the judge, again, seemed to be taking that matter pretty seriously and just pretty much said that, everyone, the attorneys, the witnesses' attorneys, the accusers' attorneys, they all have to adhere to these professional rules. They all have to adhere to this professional conduct. And if this continues and if more things are said that get onto the judge.
Take Tim Miller.
The tour manager, Brian King Joseph, shamed and fired him after he reported that mysterious note in his hotel room. Miller's still employed by Will's company or consider the settlements. Cassie Ventures was rumored to be in the millions. Bryshere's, if his lawsuit goes through, could be even higher. And yet none of these payouts ever see the light of day because they come with ironclad NDAs. So when Bilal claims he has tapes not just of his own encounters but of Will and Diddy discussing who to bring in next, we have to ask how many other recordings exist and who's holding them. And that brings us to the most chilling parallel of all, Justin Bieber. Because if we're talking about young men being groomed under the guise of mentorship, we can't ignore Diddy's own history with the pop star. Remember that 2011 Jimmy Kimmel clip where a 16-year-old Bieber joked about things he does with Big Brother Puff that aren't for everybody? Or the resurfaced 2009 video where Diddy shows Bieber a Lamborghini and says, "You'll get the keys when you're 18. Before adding, "You'll get the mansion too." The camera cuts away as Bieber laughs. But the implication is clear. This isn't just a gift.
It's a transaction.
Now, flash forward to 2023, when Bieber, now a grown man with his own struggles, has never publicly addressed those 2 days with Diddy, but insiders say he's one of the reasons Diddy's legal team is terrified of what might come out in the sentencing phase.
And you and I both know from a legal perspective to make a very public case and a very public claim against a high-profile celebrity when there are avenues in the law where someone could file a lawsuit anonymously. I'm not saying that's what your client wanted to do or not, but sometimes there's an avenue. That goes to a clear issue of credibility, and it goes to a clear issue of why do this. I did have a couple of questions for you.
Because if Bieber does have something to say, he won't be the only one. Usher's already hinted at the wild things he saw. Terrence Howard has gone on record about the man card you lose in those rooms. And now with Bryshere's lawsuit and Ball's tapes, the question isn't if more names will surface, it's when. But here's what we haven't talked about yet, the paperwork. Because for every Ball or Bryshere willing to speak, there are dozens who stayed silent. And the records prove it. Take the NDAs, standard practice in Hollywood, but in this case, allegedly weaponized. Bryce's former lawyer, who asked to remain anonymous, claims his client was pressured to sign one in 2020, right after his first arrest. The terms were a seven-figure payout in exchange for absolute silence about his time with Will and Diddy. Bryce refused, but how many others didn't? And what about the medical records? Bell hinted at Jada's post-Anthony procedures. Butcher's mug shot shows a man who's clearly not okay. And then there's the financial trail. The $15,000 Charlie Mack allegedly wired to Andrea Gray in 2017, labeled as consulting fees.
For what?
The hospital discharge papers Brian King Joseph found in his hotel room bear a name no one recognizes. The HIV medication bottle was left like a calling card. These aren't just rumors, they're receipts, and they're all leading to the same conclusion. This wasn't just bad behavior, it was a business. So where does that leave us with a machine that's still running? Because even as we speak, Will Smith is still producing films. Diddy's legal team is still negotiating plea deals. Charlie Mack is still managing artists. And Andrea Gray, she's still selling books about surviving the streets while her son sits in jail. The lawsuits might be coming. The tapes might surface. But the real scandal isn't what happened. It's what's still happening. Because for every crier who cracks, there's another young starlet signing an NDA. For every Bilal who speaks out, there's a team of lawyers ready to bury the story. And for every freak-off session that gets exposed, there are 10 more happening behind closed doors tonight. Now, we want to know what you think because here's the question no one's asking. If this is how the powerful play, who's next to get caught in the gears? And when the tapes do drop, when the lawsuits do go public, will anyone in Hollywood actually be surprised? Or is this just the cost of doing business in a town built on secrets? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell because this story is far from over. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and as always, we'll see you in the next.